everyone got where they needed to be. And hopefully from the fruits of what came out of that discussion, you can see just why we really felt it important to be able to create that space for you all to be able to share uh, regionally and share also with our co-sponsors what you all have been grappling with, working on, excited about, challenged with, and where some of the gaps really persist in the work. So, love to hear from you all some of those sort of aha moments that maybe resonated. What did you hear from others that made you sort of uh, think thoughtfully about what innovative solutions you heard or concerns that maybe popped out? So, feel free to either utilize the chat and or share now in the space any of those aha moments or excited things that maybe you or others may have shared in those regional contexts. I know there was lots, and I know we had our facilitators taking notes to some of those things. And we know that folks come to these regional meetings primed and ready to share things with us. And thank you, Maritza. We saw some great stories in one group about how well the communities are doing to meet MBTA community requirements. Um, really like to know more about affordable housing trust that can go above 80%. So maybe there's some lessons learned, some things we can share. Appreciate the good energy in the virtual room today around the events. And so, the same question around from the six um, Martha's Vineyard community. So, seeing some trends around what communities are working on or challenge with. And to reiterate in the group, the South Shore, just south of Boston region of Mass, is different from the region. And so, yes, so we tend to be forgotten down there. We want to make sure, right? This is why we know it's so important to be able to break out into those groups. And I think, Monica, we have a few more questions too in the poll that we can sort of try to capture some more of what you all had talked about. And then I see as well in the chat concerns about where to direct members in the community. And thank you, Paula, for sharing. Was reminded about local preference and fair housing, the need to balance it in keeping seniors and adult children in the community. That's so important. And I'm glad you uplifted that as well. Feel free to continue to utilize the chat in that way. Monica will share her screen for the next question in the poll for us to capture. Feel free to copy and paste again that in your individual browsers. And we'll answer this question again together as she shares screen. And Jean, I would like to know more about what affordable housing trusts are doing and how they can be funded in cities. Yes, where there's lessons learned and things we can share in these spaces, we definitely want to do that. And so the next question we want to ask in the poll is what you're doing locally that can be highlighted and replicated. Some of you guys have talked about some of that here just in the chat just now. And you have, of course, talked about that in your separate discussion groups. But we want to uplift it so we are able to make sure that we're capturing, even if you didn't get a chance to uplift yourself in the conversation. So what you're doing locally that could be highlighted and replicated, and certainly in other communities that you see as well. So passing zoning laws for accessible accessory dwellings. Yes. So glad to see so many working on that and passing zoning laws, right, to allow for that and zoning for housing. So glad to see that being successfully replicated and highlighted in communities. Smaller, friendly 40B consisting of 9 rental units, having a broad conversation on MBTA communities, capital stock assistance. I see local legislation um, highlighted here in Falmouth and deed restriction models that HLC has approved. There's more local housing advocacy groups similar to those brainstorming groups or coalition groups, right? We're working on and glad to see that that is being uplifted as well. And then it says 55% local and 15% regional preference. Um, those sort of ideas, I mean, uplifted to demonstrate commitment to the regional problem. Love when there's regional coordinated efforts. Um, And so, new ADU bylaws, love seeing that trend happening across the state. And so, what we are going to know is that these questions are going to be active. We're going to keep the poll active for some time. So, we want you to continue to uplift the answers there in the poll so that we can capture. And if there are others who maybe didn't aren't able to attend today, that might be able to uplift things, we certainly will invite you to do that as well. And I believe we have a few more questions, but again, we want to make sure that we're ending on time here. So, Monica, if you're able, let's see if there's the next question that we might be able to get to together as well. And Carol, I see you mentioned that new Marlboro did pass a law that allows additional homes for a single family. And also in Salem may be a model, right? So, right, so lots of connections being made here in the chat and lots of things to uplift and applaud in the work that we all are doing. Um, so let's see here. The next question: what are the gaps you're seeing? I think we mentioned some of that in terms of what it was addressing, but where were some of the gaps, right? Where we asked the question, where are state and federal resources helping your housing needs? Now we want to get a sense of if there are some gaps there in terms of um, needing the needs to address locally in your community. So subsidies for home ownership and vouchers don't meet the cost of housing. Emergency shelter needs far exceed the assistance. Yeah, large inventory, subsidies for home ownership. We saw again being uplifted. Emergency shelter needs. Seeing that as another trend that's popping up. Not enough funding tailored for rural communities. Targeting to rural communities. Thank you so much for uplifting that as well. Service coordination in all senior housing. All right. We want to make sure that these are things for helpful for us so that as we sort of assess and do our work internally, I'm identifying our policies and priorities. This helps us to get a real sense. And so uplifting and some of the questions with the thumbs up is helpful. If you see that if it already applies, please, please, please do uplift as well. And I'm not sure if we have, I think we have time for one or two more questions, Monica. Let's go on to the next questions to make sure. And again, the poll will be open so you can continue to answer those questions for us so we can capture as much of the work as is possible. Um, also. So let's see if we can get to the next question, um, and then we'll work to sort of wrap here. So, what has been your community's response to MBTA communities? And certainly, if you're not part of that, Brad mentioned in the chat earlier, right? What are some of the solutions that you're seeing? What are things folks talking about to have something that's replicable in the community? And are you hearing that? Is that something that is of concern? So certainly I imagine someone will say that in their response. Please do uplift that question if it applies as well. And I know Lily talked a lot about the work that she has been doing in the cohort work. And so definitely be reaching out to her so that she can sort of share with you what's happening in those communities. And so, yes, we're not an MBT community, but we're working with the local regional transit to bring bus stops to our affordable housing. So making that transit-oriented development connection. Folks are panicking, so we want to make sure that we're. I see that folk someone uplifted that, right, and the community wants to ignore or not comply with issues. NIMBYs are coming out in opposition to. These are things that we're seeing, and so certainly this idea of having a stream of funding attached with the carrot and stick approach are things we have been hearing also. Um, so this is helpful for us. This is very, very helpful for us. So we appreciate you taking the time to in detail share that information as well. It has been 50-50, creates opportunity areas, but also gentrifies. And so understanding that nuance as you approach advocacy is certainly important. So we'll pause for just a moment as we hope to wrap here and we'll make again the poll active. Please continue to share those responses with us. We want to invite you, as we mentioned, to join our fair housing committees, to join us in getting our housing briefs, knowing what's current, what we're working on, certainly to become a CHAPA member. And so we'll stop sharing screen for just a moment so we can see everyone here collectively together. Just really excited to know that you all took the time to join us on this morning to really share what you have been working on. I hope in many ways we created opportunity for you to both hear what we've been working on as well as share with us what you are working on, what you'd like us to consider. But it doesn't end here, it continues. It certainly continues, and we would love to have you engage with us beyond today. So I will pause to have Rachel give any closing remarks. And if folks have updates or things to share, or upcoming events, and those sort of things, and we have a sort of a wide range of folks and participants here. Please throw them in the chat at this time. So I will turn it over to Rachel to give any of our closing wrapping remarks.
I just want to thank you all for coming and for sharing so much about what's going on. I know we barely scratched the surface, and so please always feel free to reach out and get involved with our committees. We have committees that are around rental assistance, fair housing, public housing, production and preservation, and that's really built around our current legislative agenda. In the future, those committees may change depending on the priorities. So please get involved. And I think my great. I seem to be having some network problems. So I will just say thank you. I don't know if you all can hear me.
Thank you, Rachel. Yes, we heard you loud and clear. Thank you so much. And thank you all for joining. And to the CHAPA team, the full staff. I told you we work well together. You can see we jump right in and help each other out. This is part of the leadership that Rachel sort of sets the tone here. But thank you guys for just being patient with us and for joining us again this year. And we hope to continue the work together as you join our committees and join us for our Confronting the History of Housing Discrimination session, our Affordable Housing 101 session. Talk with us during our office hours. Chat with Monica if you're interested in creating an affordable housing advocacy coalition group in your community. And we'll follow up after today's meeting with all of those notes and takeaways from today's call. So thank you all so much and have a great rest of your afternoon and day. Thanks, everybody.